I'm going to talk tonight about surviving in the Pacific Northwest. So it's an area that I feel comfortable talking about. I've already talked about Colorado and the places that I've been, and I see a lot of people migrating there. I've talked about that for years in advance, and after the COVID lockdowns, lots of people moved to Colorado in droves, driving up the cost of the land in some areas twice what it was previously worth. In some cases, way more than twice. Some people saw their land go from $100,000 to $600,000 or $700,000 in Costilla County, even higher after they complained about it. They reassessed it even higher. So a lot of people actually are going to be forced back into the grid, and it's unfortunate. I've been an advocate of off-grid rights. You can look up at Wayback Machine, offgridco.com, back to the 2015, 2016 time period in which I also threw up my hands and just kind of like moved on with my life because I had to, because I was powerless, unfortunately, to help the people, the off-gridders of Costilla County. And there was some interference that I believe we faced during that time period. Okay, and so that is something that I'll be writing more about. Now, Portland, Oregon, obviously the major city in Oregon, different from the other Oregon areas. There's some areas, like one area looks okay from Google Maps, starts with a C, 4 letters, out there in Oregon. Other places in Eastern Oregon, they look like decent pockets, but it's the consciousness of the locals. However, the algorithm on social media in Oregon is not as psychopathic as some others. Most people don't know that state by state and zip code by zip code, they, the controllers of social media, which sometimes includes foreign governments, can manipulate the algorithm to create unrest and anger amongst the people, the races, things of that nature. I've seen it and reported on it over and over, like the commonly cited 2020 riots in Chicago or 2021. Also in Oregon, you had unrest around the time of the lockdown, and I feel like that was very predictable. They did make it easy for people to protest during the lockdowns in response. They made it a very populist thing to do with social media. I don't see it as something that they were suppressing, nor should they. By saying that they weren't suppressing it, I'm not saying that they should. Let me speak further. There are things that I think they created within the anti-vax movement to make it extreme, to make white supremacy on par with vax skepticism. You had people using the purebloods terminology in protests in Europe where you had Nazis alongside anti-vaxxers. And I'm looking at that, and other people saw that, and that wasn't good. And sure, you could say the mainstream media, right, I get it, and I agree. But there are people out there that unfortunately did allow the algorithms to merge some of these concepts together, just like certain things in Flat Earth, okay? They are the masters of distraction and illusion. And I feel like I have a gift, folks, in exposing it. Okay. I don't want to be stuck on the human trafficking thing. We'll just go back to it. Portland is located, you know where, look at it on Google Maps. Look at that water route that goes from the Willamette River, and then you have the Columbia River, which goes up to the ocean. There's a history of people being kidnapped out of Portland. Documented. I have whole shows on it. Okay? You see where I'm going with this? I'm not trying to make it happen. But it's a bad feeling I have about history repeating itself, so that's the route. I thought long ago while in Portland about a day in which survivalists would watch their community with, men that are equipped to deal with invaders that are hunting for women, that, like, say, have like a bounty. And I would speculate for years about certain websites going up in which Americans are straight up sold. Yep, I've talked about these things for a long time, and I've talked about accidentally stumbling upon adult content on the internet that promotes such behavior. To not take screenshots, it's horrifying that that's even out there, but I'm not the only one who's seen that. Why other people don't talk about that while they criticize the industry, they don't really get specific. They're like, oh my God, that exists? Yes. And do I think that that should be frowned upon? That type of thinking, role-playing? Yes, I think that that should be frowned upon. I don't think that people should have weird, morbid fantasies about waking up in foreign countries as slaves. So, like, I already, knew in my own mind in Portland, Oregon. I just sensed it with the sex industry. So I don't want to be stuck there tonight, guys, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm feeling focused. All right. Now, Joel Skousen back in the day did say that he thought that Portland would be a good spot in the event of certain disasters. Okay. And on one level, there's a level of consciousness of the people in Portland, a positive earth energy that I miss. And so it's because of that, that there's a cooperative energy that exists in Portland that with some folks is authentic. Although it's not perfect and there's a lot of screwed up people there now. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Okay. So I support the homeless being helped, but I don't support the idea of everybody having like what we would call permanent housing. I support more of the off-grid thing. But as far as whatever's going on, the term is poverty pimps that certain people that I've talked to over the years in Portland have used, where basically they make money off of the housing of the homeless, and they don't necessarily help the people that are the most deserving. And when I was in Portland, I did not go through official paperwork routes, just so you know, to get any housing. When I did get housing in the 2000s, it was through Central City Concern, and I was, getting clean from the street drugs that for whatever reason they allowed to be in the streets in abundance from Honduras immigrants. Kind of a sad state of affairs. I've been tripping on that lately. Like, was there some sort of inside job going on in Portland with the cops back then in the 90s? To allow all those drugs to be? I think so. I think there were some things going on behind the scenes with Portland. By the way, what I find super fascinating, I'm a little off topic, but not too far. There was some sort of a organized crime comic book based in Portland, Oregon, I believe created by Dark City, that may have also written about corrupt cops, dealing drugs, things of that nature, based in Portland, Oregon. There's also a movie based in Portland, not very glamorous, kind of dirty, other than Brain Smasher, filmed in Portland, called Drugstore Cowboy. You might want to check that out. Also made in Portland. The Hunted, with Benicio del Toro, who was with Johnny Depp. One of my favorite movies, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I don't have a glamorous drug story to tell you. Mine's kind of actually nightmarish and pathetic, but it's one in which I found God, so to speak, or the truth movement through, getting in trouble. And then basically realizing that I had a spark within me, and that once I realized that I was to speak this truth, there was a sense of healing. So I guess we'll bounce around. We'll start here. I have not seen all that I would have liked to have seen in the Pacific Northwest while I was there. But I have seen Eastern Oregon with lots of road trips. I don't think I told you this, with Morris Nagel, with my grandpa to Boardman, Oregon. And plane trips to Yamhill County, almost to the coast. So lots of this from the Willamette Valley in each direction, east and west, with grandpa. Mm-hmm. And then some not hunting trips, but fishing trips into Central Oregon. Really beautiful land. Remember listening to the Dances with Wolves soundtrack, sitting there with my grandpa on 84 heading back to Portland. My grandpa, I don't want to talk about the past moving forward, but because of maybe things that he wished or whatever didn't work out a certain way, he wanted to help me in what ways he could while he was still alive. So I am grateful for that. I could have ended up, a situation where there was no rescuing grandpa. My mom could have been gone, and it was just me left to the system and the streets, honestly. And that's what's happened to some people in America. I didn't want to go there right now, but there's a lot for me to process. Because of my grandpa during those years, things could have been a lot worse. Okay, so I'm thinking about the farm, and the farm is gone. But here's the point. If people weren't to just divorce and keep the land, the farm, what's the point of that for the day in which the shit's the fan and a family needs to homestead? So we'll just use that as an example. That property has basically fallen apart, and if I could get a go to visit that, if I knew the owners of the old property on Airport Road, I would. But anyway, the idea is people in multiple families surviving for an extended period of time on food that they can grow, on land that they can defend, and a property like that, in a place like that, under certain conditions, with the exception of a military invasion, if it was just like a EMP or like a power outage, there are no major nuclear plants in that region. However, on the east coast of the USA, there are pockets and pockets of them, and in the south, but in Colorado, not so many. Colorado, military state, lots of targets. And by the way, there's a new declaration from Russia. I don't know if we have time to get into it now. I posted it somewhere, but there's 3 states that Russia TV said that they're going after: Hawaii, possibly California, and Alaska. Definitely Hawaii and Alaska. It's not the first time, and they had some drills in Alaska. I don't know every single detail, and I've not shared with you every detail that needs to be said about this. But I intend to. Take a look at this drill that happened and not forget about it. So if you're not dealing with a nuclear event, certain areas in the U.S. are absolutely ideal. And so I'm just going to make this point and move on. I do find it sad still that there aren't roots that I have in the Willamette Valley where my childhood is. And that I don't know of any viewers, or at least supportive viewers. Certainly nobody leaving donations. And, I won't let it get me down. Moving on. Hey, one time when I had an older female Christian viewer, I think she was a little fundamentalist, and she kind of turned me off with how strongly she came on. But she invited me and the G-Man, who came back in my life temporarily around 2009. By the way, I attribute that to the solar cycle. When the solar cycle rises, some people are temporarily attracted to return to me. Hey, and they come back on cue. The solar cycle fires back up. I predict that they'll arrive in some form, email, also interference too with eclipses, always on cue. Energy. With the eclipse energy comes certain things. And fake friends and things like this. You just have to use discernment with what energies you get involved in. And by the way, my advice was to stay out of Dodge during eclipse season. And what did I do? I ran around with a megaphone. I ran around doing road trips. I ran around to a crappy casino, didn't spend any money, didn't eat any food, gave out my YouTube channel, lost my freaking camera. So anyway, visited this lady up in where Twilight is set, that crappy vampire movie. Now that area there, and if you keep going, so I drove in a historic road trip with G-Man, and we went up, I don't remember the route, but we, of course, passed Seattle, past Bellingham, and maybe started up, and then heading, sorry, I don't have a map out, to the west towards Port Angeles. Oh, at night. I think we got pulled over, but it didn't turn out to be anything weird. And we were driving a big, what was it, like a late 60s, early 70s Volkswagen, like real gas guzzler, real tank of a green car, green vehicle. I don't know if he still has it. Probably not. He drove around with Mike Bluehair with an InfoWars contest once Alex Jones did the Joker thing. We all joined in on his ridiculous contest. I repent of that nonsense. Anyhow, so we go all through there, and I go to some of the bars, hang out, talk to some of the locals, go to some of the gift shops and fill it out. And on one level, that could be ideal for a grid-down situation if you're not dealing with a Chinese invasion. On the other hand, it seems like it's going to be ground zero, all those West Coast folks. That one day they may just wake up with paratroopers coming down the West Coast or coming down through Canada. Now, again, just brief note, I've said this many times. I do believe that there is intentional, unintentional intelligence agency fake news, putting out fake information about invasions, be it Russian and Chinese. I just don't touch that stuff. I don't touch the stuff from Stephen Quill, and there's a track record some of them have about fake dates and things of the like. I have reported on China down in League City, Texas, training. I have reported on Colorado having Russian troops training with U.S. troops, possibly looking at some sort of a weapon or a drone, looking at photographs. I have that video over at Daily Motion and shared it again recently in my channel. Then there's the Singaporean Air Force Base in Idaho. I report on that. Stories about that started to emerge in 2008. And they may have some ties to China. They're in Asia. Singapore, China, Singapore, Idaho. Then you have China doing drills with the United States. Okay. With regards to continuing earthquake drills and preparedness. So we have that going on. And then you have Top-Off 4 in 2007, and then you have the black helicopters in 2008. And then you have whatever type of drone surveillance has been going on since that time, under the guise of fighting terrorism. And then out in the ocean, you have the Navy with the sonar, and then not just there, but elsewhere, dolphins washing up, but also in conjunction with geomagnetic storms, more specifically, when whales wash up dead. There's something going on. They're losing their navigation, where normally they might be okay. Okay. So, you have a lot of manufacturing of certain groups, like Spokane is a hotspot, and was a hotspot during the Trump years. And certain candidates, there's definitely been an attempt to move in on the Northwest and prep it for something. And aspects of rural America, and maybe they're the ones behind some of the local secession plans there. Hard to tell, don't know. But Russia does want to occupy certain territories and see the U.S. broken up into regions. They've talked about this. We shouldn't necessarily freak out that they're talking about this on national TV. They have a history of this, and I talked about it briefly in that clip, as you saw, maybe, on the other channel. One of them with Jerome Corsi, who knows Trump. Not that something to brag about, but I know a few people that know Trump. Not that I could try to reach Trump if I wanted to, but if I really put my mind to it and emailed everybody that I suspected of maybe knowing Trump, maybe somehow I could get through to him. But I don't really want to. Has Trump ever seen my videos? I don't know. Has Biden? I don't know. Have others? Yes. More people than you know. It's kind of ridiculous that I'm not more influential on this planet. All I can do is just continue to make videos. Central Oregon, now that is a nice spot, but China has a big chunk of land there, just like southern Texas. So that stop people from investing there? Well, they should be concerned about it. And they should be aware of any bizarre activity on that land. Any bizarre aircraft, any weird balloons, anybody jumping down, or parachute activity, whatever. It's in and around Bend. Never met Zoe Ansary, but she's a public person with millions of views, and she talks about living there. So I think that she's living an affluent life, I have to assume. But there's also increased poverty there and overflow of homeless. Again, a lot of people from Measure 110 and other reasons have flowed up, have migrated up to and from different places to the Pacific Northwest. So you not only have a lot of people that have a lot of money that live there, okay, that are like in shock of all the homeless. You have the homeless there that are, so let's talk about that. And for whatever reason it's happening, it's not just the result of Measure 110. There's a negative energy in a lot of the people that are there, and we'll talk about some of that in some of the podcasts deeper on Substack, what I'm getting at, right? But it's not just the homeless. There are other people that are not well that are in Portland that have a dark agenda. But some of the homeless, and I totally defend the homeless, but I have an attack when I was there, just so you know. Even before I was homeless, I've had my car broken into. I've had things stolen. There are people that are mentally disturbed, that become mentally disturbed, almost like they're possessed while they're in Portland. It's just a fact. Sorry. It's true. And the other dark part is there's people that are like the poverty pimps that act like they care about everybody when they're really just making money off of just, here we go, boop, boop, boop. So there's way too many people in Oregon that are disturbed, that are walking around killing people. Okay, not going to get long-winded about this one, but you have a lot of stories now of women that are missing now in Oregon. You got various serial killer stories. The place seems apocalyptic. I'm glad that Jeff, we'll call him that, is having somewhat of a non-nightmarish experience and probably has a few friends to keep him from going totally nuts. But when I look at the news in Oregon, it looks like it's getting worse and worse and worse. There's more and more stories of like knife attacks, like increasing. And I saw this increasing last year in and around geomagnetic storms. Yeah, I'm not trying to make this too intense. I've also talked about like when the solar cycle ramps up, it's good to go out and walk around and tap into nature and observe the plant life growing and how beautiful it is, and to maybe stand and pray out in nature and be in that field and connect with nature. And like I was walking today at like 6 o'clock in the morning, very close to where I'm at, and just put my hand on a tree that looked very inviting. I'd like to be in Laurelhurst Park and touching those trees and connecting with that, but I'm somewhere else, but it's still nature. And I remember megaphoning the trees actually days ago. So I believe in connecting with trees, but just by living amongst trees, right, which I've seen in Colorado, does not necessarily make a community more loving or conscious or psychic. And surround yourself by a bunch of trees that you're not from, by being an outsider, doesn't necessarily shield you from negativity more than a regular house. Certain perspectives and theories need to be tried and tested, and I've been down that road. I know what it's like to live in the vehicle and be, like, alerted by. So, I'm just going to, speak abstractly for a period of time and just hit stop and edit it and upload it. Okay, so I've always just foreseen an event that drives people east, obviously, out of Portland. And there could be attacks that drive people out that happen in America, but maybe not specifically Portland. But there could be disruptions to the power grid in Portland from an event, but maybe not attacks on Portland, like boom, 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 but the power could be out. And people could be a little bit alarmed, and they could be picking up on information from shortwave radios, CB radios. So I do recommend those things, wherever you are. Starting a prepper group. Not trying to go too far off topic, but I want to be talking to the people in the Pacific Northwest. So I've referred to Aurora, Oregon, and Canby. Now Canby. That area, people are, if you're not nuked and you're not invaded in a military sense, and if you just deal with a power outage, you have enough vegetation, okay, and people aren't, well, again, it sounds like there's a lot more psychotic people there and criminals that are not prepping, that are waiting for the handout. And this current governor and whatnot, she's a little nutty. And so, the government there has a questionable, agenda. And it's been that way for a while. I've shown you lots of examples of that. And so lots of decent people have been driven out of Oregon. And I got to tell you, and then my parents have been, but not just them, a person that I cared about. And a lot of people have been driven out that are decent, soul-filled people. Not just them, but a lot of people. And a lot of people that are there are kind of a different sort. There might be a lot of people receptive to my information if they were to find it. The algorithm isn't going to serve it up. I don't have success posting in social media groups, but I want to help the people of the Pacific Northwest because I'm from there and I'm not from Colorado. I'm seen as an outsider who stepped into the Latino turf, basically, and the white turf, but I never messed with the Durango people or the Pagosa people or harm them, nor did I harm the people of Costilla, but I stood up for the off-gridders when they're like, hey, wait a minute, we need a certain, but I don't have a problem, by the way, with counties enforcing the land use code if people are going to move on their property and just tear it apart. Some of the people that I backed and supported, and that's another conversation, off topic, weren't grateful and weren't very nice. But I foresee myself in the future doing an extended mashup of the Costilla County coverage, kind of recounting it, listening to it, and recording it, and maybe throwing up, a 5-hour video, but maybe having it all in one clip. There's a lot of videos there. Okay. Now, what if we took that same spirit of defending the person that wants to live in their RV off some land and just homestead, and we applied that to Oregon? I've contacted, just so you know, before I came back to the internet, I wanted to start small and start posting on Facebook, and I contacted Willamette Week, who I talked to before, and said, what if people, and I was trying to talk to them, not necessarily for a homeless solution, but talk to their own selfishness, What if people that talked about wanting to be all sustainable and whatnot, lived off grid and worked to necessarily not live in micro apartments? I didn't use that terminology, but in Portland, but work together to change the land use code so you can live outside of Portland in, say, some decent, cool places in Oregon. There's some decent places out there, not a lot, but I'm not from. People tell me about Ashland. I don't know of anyone in Ashland. Someone did send me a YouTube link to a person there. I may make contact, possibly. I don't know. I don't know this person. Typically, it doesn't work out for me to make contact with these people. Maybe I should just not tell them too much. Who knows? But Ashland, Oregon does sound like a place where they have some spiritual energy going on. And I would love to be in Northern California in the Redwoods in some sort of non-chaotic time in California. basically. I don't know if Southern California is in my future, but I would love to be able to have the right connections in Southern California to work on a professional project, to not go down there and wander aimlessly. But I am going to find that clip of me screaming some stuff about China. I have this memory of me yelling about China, not with a megaphone, but it's almost as if I had a megaphone, and I'm yelling by some ship about China in San Diego, and it's like, I'm not sure the exact date. That was a whole really weird trip. Then I started chain smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol, which lowered my soul voltage for that period, or my shield, which opened up the door to me becoming sick while going to Las Vegas. On no sleep, walking around like a bum, basically, with no energy, with my chi just and loose, with my cannabis in other dude's pocket. So I'm not even able to, like, chill. Till later, I have to go get some street kids. I'll just spare you the rest of that story. And some of the weird questions that were asked. Yeah, hanging around Fremont Street in Vegas. Not something that I would recommend. Now, I am looking for a Vegas friend that I trust to meet me in Vegas for a couple of nights. Okay, if I was to park my car at the airport, it's cheaper than me taking a taxi to go into Vegas. But I am not interested, just so everybody knows, in gambling. But if I could find a nerd who can try to train me or teach me, and or with the pendulum, I'm willing to do a couple like sports games with the pendulum, see if the universe supports that, and or some fun with some of the games. Okay, I noticed that I made 16 cents on the dollar at the casino when I traveled recently. I'll give you the audio podcast. Maybe I'll work on that tomorrow. And then 16 is 32, 32, 64. 64 I've been seeing everywhere next to the 411 and the 144, but 64. And there's 64 in the I Ching, and it's been recommended more than once that I study the I Ching. And I have not yet brought to you that gnosis, but that'll come maybe one day. The spirituality of the I Ching and the 64, and why do I keep seeing it? I keep seeing it like hardcore, this 64 and the 88. And that's what the 16 is. I got the 16 cents on the dollar. 88. I keep seeing the 88, and I got 16 cents on the dollar. Not an accident. This 88 symbolism. So anyways, yeah, Molly walking around doing podcasts and videos, feeling the electromagnetic energy, or even without that, checking out some of the dispensaries and some of the gummies that are in Vegas there. That would be the first spot. Doing some videos about that, interviewing people, man on the street. If I could meet one or two people, we have a camera crew. Then I wear the suit, we do a man on the street special, kind of like Jay Leno, and we see where consciousness is, and we don't stage it like Mark Dice. We see where consciousness really is, and we let people speak, and we have a full hour. We don't do it for YouTube clickbait. We have like a conversation. I'm not going to act like I have all the answers. I'm going to try to get people's diverse opinions. I'm going to try not to talk too much. I promise. I talk. And I edit out also some of my rants when I interview people, because I realize, oh man, I just went on and on. So you see what I'm trying to do here? I'm trying to lead by example, that you can give advice when it comes to truthing your community, wherever you are, whether you're in the South, whether you're on the East Coast, Florida. I don't know all these regions like some of you guys do, so I just generalize it. Southern California, California. What I know is Pacific Northwest. What I know is aspects of Colorado, but Colorado, and let's talk about Denver. Denver, I know of a few. I don't know of a lot of people in Denver. Denver's fallen into some sort of like alien takeover, darkness. Criminal immigrants, meth heads, criminals from other states. Oh, it's so bad. Some people, even confuse me for some of the hardcore issues that were going on in Colorado, just because of that period in time that I came in was a period in time where a bunch of people came in, and a bunch of good old boys from the South came in, simply because pot was made legal in Colorado, and so because it's not legal in other places in the U.S., it was like a mad dash for off-grid land. And so it unfortunately has attracted a certain element. Leave it at that. Certain areas in Colorado that I want to visit have also fallen into destitute, drug addiction, meth labs, political extremism, on and on and on and on. There's actually a story in one town, I'll just leave it at that, in which some lady was like some cult leader or something, and she died, and then her like cult followers kept her body alive, and they were brought up on charges, and the area is like so nice up there. But like I always knew, even before I heard about that there was like this alien energy and stories of ships going in and out of the mountain from the Chris O'Brien books. Yeah, he wrote about that, the valley. Yeah, and then I talked about it. So then all of a sudden a cult pops up where they're worshiping this lady, Mali, some nonsense. She dies. Cops roll up. They're like, you're arrested. They're like, but she's a god. Like, no, she's dead. You're going to jail. So I don't know what happened there. We can watch documentary on, like, that's crazy, folks. There really are. And then I saw some threads online. There's chatter, but not a lot online. Whether they cover up or not, who knows? I don't think everything is government interference. Sometimes it's just unseen force, demonic alien interference, honestly. There's a lot of, like, four-corner, like, doomsday cult-like figures down there. Where they be online, have websites, where there's a lot of good information, but there's some crazy, too. Not just there, but just in general. I haven't seen all of Eastern Washington, but that's obviously some good area, right? If you're able to, be independent, that's much rockier. But I do sense still that there is going to be this invasion, though. Yeah. And so the West Coast isn't where I want to be, but people are going to be hunkering down there regardless. And it seems from Leon's vision that he didn't see. He did say that those are places where people probably didn't want to be, honestly. So I have no idea how to tell you to prepare for something in which they're physically dropping out of the sky and they're kidnapping people. Honestly, I've been one of the few that's been warning you about this scenario for years and years and years, and I've paid the price. It's not very popular. But if people are now going to be talking about North Korea, Russia, Iran, China, rocking the U.S. and acting like they're going to kick the New World Order's butt, and they're going to be heroes. I'm here to say, no, you're not heroes in Alex Ansary's eyes. You are, in my eyes, part of the New World Order. And you are planning to kick in the teeth of the American people, and you're playing some nefarious stuff. And my intuition sometimes sees into the mind of the controllers. So, I guess my advice is to prepare for evacuation, but a lot of people aren't going to do that. They refuse to. So we just have to, like, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. I think about Richard at survivalcenter.com in the Pacific Northwest, who I met years ago, and how he will fare. Hopefully he will be fine. But, he's also right there in the Northwest in rural Washington, where if these things transpire, we could see, some bad stuff there along the I-5 corridor. And I suspect, there's going to be this Chinese cartel overlay, and from what I'm hearing now, it's already in the news. I warned about it before it was in the news, but right, what's in the news now is the fentanyl cartel Chinese connection, right? And what I'm warning you about is the cartel Chinese connection with kidnapping American women, white women, at some point, like it being like mainlined. Websites and everything, dystopian videos. I talked about it months ago. Scary stuff, folks. And this manufactured hate of Portland also, and then, it seems a part of the agenda too. Not that Portland is innocent. Portland's easy to criticize, but why just Portland? Why has there been just focus? And was Alex Jones part of a larger agenda to put the focus on Portland and for Trump to go Portland? When if you want to start blaming, like, no, it's not the people of Portland's fault for whatever issues Trump has in the White House, his legal issues, Epstein, election fraud claims regarding 2020, and on down the line. The people of Portland, Antifa, whatnot, punks in the street, people with masks jumping up and down going, ooh, 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 ooh. Sorry, but if the shoe fits. Yeah, monkey-like, I get it. Terrorists, broken a few windows, not so much. Did I say a long time ago there was an agenda for the federal government to seize Portland, Oregon? Is that my allegation from 2010? Did I guarantee it would be December 21st, 2012? No. I just said, hey, you got this top off 4 drill. I covered it. And what did they do? Briefly mentioned it. But it was about a mock-up Al Cieita drill dirty bomb. And, they come in and save the day. They come in to save the day. And it looks like some sort of vaccine drill, whatnot. You got the kids with the wands, and you got Michael Chertoff, who I confronted. When are the American people going to be taught about the threat potentially of China and Russia? This isn't really about terrorists. Oh, we don't talk about other drills, Northcom drills, high-level military drills. No, we want you focused on this fear of them, right? That's what the program was. And I was there to pop that bubble and go, no, you're planning something. Y'all are planning something. I point at the East, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And they're at the same time period as China and Russia with their war game drills. And I'm going, there's a connection. Because right as they're doing this, we in America are doing this. So we have Top Off 4 on the ground. You have Vigilant Shield 07 above ground. Below ground, above ground. And there I am in those press conferences bringing this up over and over and over again. Then they come around going, folks, listen, why don't you keep your questions to Top Off 4? We understand you have some other questions about some other things. I'm going to keep your questions to Top Off 4. Now, Willamette Week covered this, Goldie, and it may still be on their channel. Former Governor of Oregon, Ted Kulongoski, said, and I quote, something's going to happen to me. I'm going to have to trigger the succession clause of the U.S. Constitution. I'm going to fall in trap. Something's going to happen to me. And I'm going to have to decide who's going to be in charge, folks, when the shit hits the fan. Paraphrasing. Wow. So, I already knew the guy was like this little, and I'm not going to say J-word villain, but other people are going to go, that's totally a J-word villain right there. Don't go that way. Don't swing that way. But, yeah. Wow, what a character, that guy. And a lot of other characters that have served in office that have had like young girlfriends and whatnot. Again, I was recounting, for those that didn't know previously in a video, that I was aware of some nefarious things that former manager of mine in Portland, okay, with underage staff. And he fired me for no reason, for maybe getting some Indian food, or that was a Thai food across the street. Portland has this dirty, like, sexual assault past of selling women and kidnapping men. And then lots of slave energy. So Portland and other places like it in America have negative karma, which is unfortunate. You can try to white knight, I guess, and save it. One thing, the Sufi Realities channel, although I hardly watch it anymore because he's almost too spiritual for me. But if I really want to get like my mind blasted for a few days, watch it. We will, if you're down with it, watch his video with my commentary of him talking with the black guy about the aliens, the jinn, the UFOs. And show you the parallels in what we're saying and how he's way different than the average Muslim who will not talk about that stuff. Jumping topics, but I did go to a Muslim festival in person and saw, big gruff guy, big guy, alpha, Arabic letters, I. And I go, hey, let me talk to you. And you got to understand the difference between me and them. They're not going to get targeted. They're not going to get weird emails because they're not in the fight to try to wake your ass up. They're not going to get bothered. They're not going to deal with homelessness. They're not going to deal with van life. They're not going to deal with poverty. They're not going to deal with just being online and not dealing in the real world like you and going to work 9 to 5. They're not going to deal with those things. And I do. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, I do want to truth my immediate community, and I'm thinking about ways to do that with DVD, and I talked about that in the previous video, so that I can prepare my community and meet them in person without necessarily talking to them about my life story, and taking some of the hater feedback, constructive feedback, seriously, right? Even if I don't text well back and forth, I still do think about things and digest things. And go, if I'm trying to truth people, if I alienate them by coming off a certain way or sharing certain perspectives about myself that they don't need to hear, am I sabotaging the whole truthing them for the shit in the fan scenario? In some cases, yes. I gotta censor that aspect of myself in order to just help them, which is why I'm gonna create other platforms, create other books, and just do good things and do good deeds. Back to the 8 spokes, the reference Jeff made was to Buddhism and the 4 Noble Truths and the 8 Noble Path. And I remember meditating in Costilla County in the yurt, okay, and actually watching the sun and just focused on the 8 Noble, but not having the book on Buddhism, but, right thought, right concentration, wisdom, thinking about various attributes, and then going down the list in meditation, and being in certain states of consciousness that included cloud busting and visualizing just even the removal of entities, and that was solar maximum. contemplating the power of the mind, and then later trying to create Facebook groups and YouTube videos, trying to get people together to engage in these experimental group meditations and facing interference and very disturbed individuals coming into the groups that were not well, that did not have what Dion Fortune would call the preliminary training, which is already meditating on a regular basis, already being grounded, already having experience connecting and being at a certain level, having a certain level of discipline, not having a dirty lifestyle. Drinking's okay. I'm not going to judge someone for drinking, but I want to drink sometimes. Maybe I should drink now. But at times, drinking can bring through unhealthy spirits, and I have found myself in a state of unrest under the influence of alcohol in recent weeks. So it's not always a positive thing to drink, but I don't always think that it's a sin. And I feel like people sometimes ask too much of others. Sometimes people really do need to just have a good time. And alcohol can be therapeutic in the right settings when you hang out with others. And that's what I miss about Portland. Portland, Oregon, if it's not nuked, in and of itself has the potential for a lot of positivity in a grid down situation if people are willing to trade and barter. And a lot of people are already on that wavelength. Okay, but there's definitely going to be a lot of suffering there too when there's lack. Okay? We really don't know what are going to be the ultimate areas in America, but this will just be a start of an ongoing conversation.